and we're on. Hey guys, it is Carlton here, and I'm back with the promised video where I'm going to share my story about experiences with bigotry. Racism, I'd rather call it bigotry because it's mostly ignorance and people acting out and doing ugly things. A lot of people don't know what I've been through in my life, and so this is for everyone so they can understand how I see things from my own perspective. And this is not just for white people, this is for black people, this is for anyone of any background, so you can know where I am coming from and what my experience is. So my goal is just to bring us closer together, to offer a little advice for people who have gone through things, and maybe you can learn something from me that will help you in dealing with racism, bigotry, or helping people to come together. We'll give you a warning. I'm just going to give you the straight stories. I'm not going to mince words. There's going to be a little strong language. I'm not going to use any euphemisms here. These are things I had to hear when I was growing up, and I didn't get to turn them off. And so you can, if you want, turn this off and not hear it. But I encourage you to just listen to this and then hang in there, because you'll see what the point is as I tell you about like how I dealt with it and how it's affected my life. All right. You'll be surprised in the end when I tell you how it has affected my life. I guarantee you it's going to be a twist. Let's just kind of plow through. I've got my notes here. And, just to go from, say, a few things from grade school, junior high, high school, college, and then adulthood. And there's way too many stories to tell. I can tell you this to start off. I did experience a lot of bigotry, a lot of heinous bigotry, stuff that you would kind of think would happen during the 50s or 60s in Selma, Alabama. And I grew up in the early 70s, born in 1967, grade school, early 70s in Holt Summit, Missouri, suburb of Jefferson City, where we moved to when I was in first grade from Chicago. So back in grade school, I can remember first moving here, walking into school, and, me, my brother Jeff, my older sister Sherry, one of a handful of black students at the school, and kids seeing a black person for the first time and wow, your hair, and then wanted to reach out and touch my hair and pat it. They were just infatuated. A lot of them had never seen a person with big lips. I had to endure lip jokes. You've got big lips, you have fat lips, saucer lips, balloon lips, whatever. I started to have a little bit of a complex about having big lips back in grade school. I heard the N-word, which is the last time I'm going to use the euphemism. I was called a nigger in grade school more times than you would be able to count on a calculator. Just keeping it, completely real there. I was called a lot of names in grade school. I was called ape, monkey, porch monkey, baboon, jungle bunny, spear chucker. That was a good one. I was made fun of. We played little games in grade school where, they would do certain things and call me names. I had a lot of good experiences, but I had to put up with, the stuff from ignorant people too. I remember in junior high school going to 7th grade where I was really nervous because it's all the grade schools come together as one in 7th grade. And one of the biggest things was watching my friends that I grew up with and their reaction to seeing lots of black kids, more than just the safe ones that they grew up with me, that they were used to. And granted, some did mean things to me. Oh, another thing was when Roots came out and I'm in 5th grade. Now, what do you think happens to the one black kid in the class after Roots comes out? Yeah, they get called Kunta Kinte for the rest of, the foreseeable future until it becomes not a thing. So I was called Kunta for 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and that did not start to fade until 8th grade. Now, Kunta was better than nigger. So, and there wasn't much that I could do to stop it, no matter how many times I told them, please don't call me that. Oh, come on, Kunta. It's just, we're just having fun. Come on, take a joke. Well, anyway, when we got to 7th grade and seeing the reaction of my friends, when we're walking to the bus and we get on the bus and then there's a pack of black students walking down the hill to get to their bus. And these are kids I've known, from my church and interacting with other black churches. And all of a sudden, all my friends jump up to the windows, go back to Africa, get out of here, you porch monkeys, go home, niggers, porch monkeys, saucer lips, spear chuckers. And then they say, hey, no offense, Carlton, but we just have to do that. That was a constant experience. In fact, that got like really old, so old for my friends to the point where they would, yell all these things or, throw stuff at the black kids when they're walking by. And then they'd say, no offense, Carlton, wherever you are. I mean, they got to the point where they wouldn't even stop to, look at me and find where I was on the bus to apologize. I remember once I had a girl who was a year or two older than me who sat me down and said, I need to read you this paper. This is a joke. And you need to hear this because it's about you. So I was in 7th grade. I think she was in 8th, maybe flunked a couple times. And it was a joke on paper because back then we wrote jokes on paper. There was no internet. And so imagine that, kids, no internet, no cell phones. So she sat me down and proceeded to tell me, read this paper, which was about porch monkey season. So she explained to me what a porch monkey was, where porch monkeys could be found, the length of time, the duration of porch monkey season, which was year round, what the bag limit was for shooting porch monkeys. If you haven't figured that out, porch monkeys are black people. And then common interactions of porch monkeys, their behaviors, and then what to do when you come across one. So I just kind of thought, wow, well, thanks for informing me about this. It was pretty common growing up that friends would come to me to tell black jokes and nigger jokes to absolve them from guilt because, as they would say, hey, I'm not a racist because at least I told a black person. I remember 8th grade also had a teacher, Mr. Fisher, very popular teacher who one day, we loved Mr. Fisher. I loved Mr. Fisher. One day he said, okay, guys, I got a joke. And everybody's like, all right, what is it? And he said, oh, I can't tell. Carlton's here. And then I was like, what? And I remember everybody in the class letting out this big groan. And they're like, oh, man. And he said, well, I can't tell unless Carlton says I can. So everyone turns around me and looks at me. Come on, Carlton. So under that peer pressure, I folded. I said, proceed, tell your joke. So then he went ahead and told a couple of black jokes that involved watermelons and stealing and things like that. That's in class from your teacher. I remember in 8th grade, friends telling me that Lincoln University was Jigaboo U, and how my dad worked at Jigaboo U. He was the choir ensemble director. He's also the head of recruiting. He handled that for many years. He did a lot for Lincoln University, Jigaboo U. High school was interesting. We had bullies on the bus still. We had a couple near racial melees where I had to call in protection because I had guys on the bus yelling at me, throwing things, you name it. I've had rocks thrown at me, crazy stuff, violent things. And mostly I ignored it. My dad taught me how to rise above it, how to deal with it. I remember going out for the golf team and remembering how much of a shock it was for students and some of the coaches to see a black kid coming up to play golf. So my uncle had taught me how to play golf, and I showed up, and it was very sketchy. I remember hearing plenty of black jokes while on the golf team, getting made fun of, teased, abused, picked on. I'd hit my ball, and we'd be on the fairway, and somebody would stomp my ball and plant it into the ground and say, if you touch that, that's a penalty stroke. And then if I complained or said something back, they'd say, are you mouthing off, nigger? And they'd say things like, don't mouth off or back talk, or we'll pound you into the ground like we did that golf ball. Some of you might not believe that happened, but it did. I had a buddy, Keith Jacobson, one of the greatest people on planet Earth. Keith, who was white, he still is white, actually, and he took me under his wing. He befriended me from day one. And I had not known him, too well. And he loaned me clubs, taught me how to play, stuck by me. And I had a wonderful 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, on the golf team because of mainly Keith Jacobson. What a great guy he was. Now, Can you imagine? Keith, I think, is a Trump supporter, and I saw someone calling him a racist because of that. Now, doesn't that twist your mind? This was the one guy who stood by me, defended me on that golf team while I had to endure heinous bigotry. And I've seen people accuse him of being a racist because of who he votes for. It's kind of a twist there. And that's not a Trump endorsement, mind you. Let's get back to the topic. What else happened in high school? I remember I was at the assembly once, and I had a seat in the front row. I sat by Jeff Ford, and I remember one day I had this new shirt on. It was a cool shirt. It boosted my confidence so much, and I was so proud to have this cool shirt. And I remember we had a pep rally in assembly, and I remember at the end of it, Jeff Ford had to tell me, hey man, somebody spit on you. You need to go to the restroom and clean that off of your shirt. And I was like, what? So I remember going to the restroom and taking off my shirt and seeing this huge glob of snot dripping down my back. And I remember the stench and washing it off and almost getting sick. And it took me until this year to forgive and learn from that situation. I had a friend of mine who brought up a couple of points that helped me heal from that. That was Melinda Hill, as a matter of fact. But one of the worst things about that was not knowing who did it. I didn't have a target for anyone to be mad at or anyone I could get back at for that act of ugliness. College, what do I remember about college? And there's several more. Like I said, I can't tell you how many experiences being accused of stealing in a grocery store, and then my parents come up and they see my parents, and my dad's light skinned, my mom is light skinned, my dad is very fair complected, and sometimes they thought he was white. They didn't know what he was. And me and my brother, being darker, and then here comes our parents, and they see them like, oh, these are your kids? And like all of a sudden that reset the equation where they knew they made a mistake. That's kind of interesting. But in college, I remember going to Mizzou and being told right away by my advisor, well, Carlton, you just need to know that engineering is not typically something that African-American males pursue. And you need to know it's not going to be easy. And you're going to probably have some friction while you're here. And I thought he was like being mean, but he was being truthful. And he was right. And I did. I got made fun of by professors in class and mistreated, or sitting in the student lounge and listening to them. One day they were going on about the statistics of black people, how we had 95% of the prisons and 80% of violent crimes and 70% of welfare and blah, blah, blah. And they're just going on and on and on. And I'm like the only black student in my, class in civil engineering. And I'm trying to fit in the best I can. And usually it was hard for me. I couldn't ask questions and people helped me out. All except one guy who I met, Mike Duesenberg. Hopefully he's watching this. One of the people with the most kindred spirits of anybody I've ever met, who accepted me from day one. And I can't think of anyone else in college when I was struggling in engineering school where I could ask a question who would have the kindness to explain and help me get through problems and show me through. And Mike stuck by me all throughout college. And I tell you what, I could attribute part of my success in making it through to Mike befriending me. There were several others, but Mike stands out the most. I flunked out 3 times and had to beg to get back in. I thought I was dumb. I actually wasn't. I had dyslexia and a learning disability. And one thing was, my mom never told me that I had tested gifted when I was young. But because of the learning disabilities, I didn't realize I had some problems with numbers. And when I got to college, I went from honor society to struggling and never knew that I had these issues going on until long after college. But anyway, some things I've experienced in the job world, working for MoDOT, showing up and being probably the first black engineer at District 5. I had some great experiences and, listening to AM radio and country music all day and thinking I was going to go crazy, even though I'm a country music fan. And then eventually, everybody grew to love me. I did have some sketchy experiences there, but it was interesting because they learned about me. I learned about them. We got along. I had some great mentors who helped me grow. I actually had a few promotional opportunities, and then I was actually approached by Joe Mickus, who was the head of maintenance and traffic division, I think, and then went on to be chief engineer. And he took me under his wing and told me, invited me to a couple executive staff meetings, and said that he thought that I obviously had the background and skills that was necessary, that would be good for a person to be groomed to, rise up into leadership and help the department to diversify, attract more black engineers, which is something that is necessary. But after he retired, I left there and went back to DNR, where I had a much different experience, where for the 23 years of experience not having any opportunity for advancement in a completely different environment, becoming an expert at what I do and really connecting out there in industry, but not, again, having that opportunity for advancement, getting down on myself, being treated bad. I had some really interesting, had a couple managers that rolled me, they raked me over the coals, which, taught me a few things. I started up and led the diversity, the multicultural diversity committee, which eventually got disbanded after I retired. What else did I do there? I helped to build a hugely successful diversity conference, but I definitely had difficulty there. But I'm going to tell you how I overcame that, and that's a story for another video. So, all in all, I've had the rough experiences that will make you or break you. Junior high school, there wasn't a day that I didn't get called a nigger. Okay, some days I might have been called a nigger 100 times. I got threatened to be beaten up. I got thrown in the sewer in football practice. I got spit on. I got picked on. I got made fun of by students and teachers. I've seen it all. Okay, and I apologize if it's hard for you to hear that, but let me tell you what, it made me what I am today. Okay, so now let's wrap all that up and give you some takeaway points for that. How I feel about this experience, what it turned me into. The way I feel about it is I am grateful for what I've gone through and for the changes I've seen in society and for things that I have seen come back. But I don't want apologies from white people. That's an awkward situation for me. I've had white people come to me and say, Carlton, I'm so sorry for anything and everything you've gone through in your life, for the bigotry you've had to endure. But honestly, I don't need that and don't want it. I mean, I respect the fact that those who have said this were sincere, but you don't need to say that to me, just so you know. And reason being is because I'm not a victim, okay? I don't participate in that because I have a higher expectation of tapping into my capabilities, and I have an expectation that I'm going to overcome and conquer each and every challenge in life. I'm not a victim. I don't want to be placed into a category of disparaged or victimized. No. And one reason why I'm not going to let anybody do that and why I'm not is because even though what you heard, it might sound extreme, that ain't nothing compared to what some other people have gone through. I had a friend that was extremely overweight that got made fun of a whole lot more than I did. I had another friend with a physical malady, deformity, that got a whole lot worse treatment than me. People of other minorities that got terrible treatment. Some of you all know Anshna Hang. We struggled together in high school. He came over. I remember from 8th grade when he came over as Pol Pot was doing this thing in his country. And did we welcome them with open arms? No. When you just think about history and other groups like the Native Americans, how about Trail of Tears? Do I have a right to complain? and make you feel sorry for me when the Native Americans had the Trail of Tears. I was hearing a story from a friend of mine telling me about how they had to walk across the Missouri River as it was frozen on their, I guess several 100-mile journey to a reservation. Okay, have I gone through anything like that? No. Were there people who overcame and survived the Trail of Tears? Yeah. So there's always somebody out there who's had it a lot worse off than you and me. And so if they can make it, we don't have an excuse. We really don't. I don't want to brag about the hardships I've gone through because there might be a Vietnam vet listening to my story. Do you know how many black men, like over 50% of the people on the front lines in Vietnam were black men who were scraped out of the inner cities, who went from one jungle to another? You know how many of them came back and survived and went on to achieve greatness? So how dare I brag and complain about my hardship when there's Vietnam vets out there who are listening? Something to think about. All right, so has bigotry stopped me? No. Does that mean that I'm speaking for everyone else? No. Because everyone has their own life experience and they can deal with it in different ways. I was blessed with certain capabilities and ways of looking at things. I look at life and difficulties as a mathematical equation, like a differential equation. Now, let me go nerd on you. Follow me here. I'm going somewhere with this. In mathematics, a differential equation is an equation that relates one or more functions and their derivatives. In applications, the functions generally represent physical quantities. The derivatives that represent their rates of change, and the differential equation defines a relationship between the two. Such relations are common, therefore differential equations play a prominent role in many disciplines, including engineering, physics, economics, and biology. What's that got to do with this? Well, here's the thing. These big old funky differential equations solve how we get from this shape to another shape over a certain period of time. Or if you could imagine a shape that doesn't change, but it changes in heat content, it's a big hunk of metal cooling off, and there's a differential equation that explains the heat loss. All right, so I equate that to life. I'm born, I die. I got goals, little stop-offs in between. So how did I get from 1973 first grade to here? By solving problems. And so along the way, I had bigotry, I had learning disabilities, dyslexia, I had things that were stumbling blocks, which make the differential equation of life a little bit more convoluted and difficult to solve. So, as we're trying to solve problems like bigotry or success or getting through the roadblocks in life, there's something that I want to tell you. This is some of the biggest advice that I can give you. All right? Solving the issue of bigotry in the quest for success in life requires logic and reason. Many times we deal with it with the emotions or through the filter of emotions. Now, when you are in your emotions, you are being directed by your limbic system of your brain or your caveman brain. The fight or flight instinct comes from. So when you're in your caveman brain, when it's activated, it short circuits the cerebral cortex. So while the cerebral cortex is turned off, you can't use logic and reason. How can you solve life's most complex equations if you can't use your cerebral cortex? This is why we see so much craziness and so many unexplainable things during these tumultuous times, because our lovely news media puts George Floyd in our faces for 24 hours a day and triggers our emotions. On my last video, we talked about some of the things related to the media putting these horrible things in front of our faces and what the triggering of emotions does. You can go back and watch that video. But for me, I can tell you that you can and you will overcome anything and everything if you operate within your executive functioning mind, allowing your cerebral cortex to help you to solve complex and convoluted mathematical life problems. So, while I have people that ask me lots of questions, are you for or against BLM? What do you think about BLM? What about all of the bad aspects of it? Or are you a Marxist? Are you a socialist? Do you agree with the people that are anti-capitalism within BLM? And does it speak for all voices in the black community? And my answer is no, it does not. Can you put it all in one basket? No, you can't. Let's just keep it simple. I support the basic idea, the premise of BLM. Black lives do matter, okay? They matter too. It doesn't mean only Black lives matter. We don't have to go down that ridiculous, childish bickering and arguing. The premise of it is, do we believe that Black lives should be respected as everyone else's? Yes. Does that explain why so much attention is given to the high-profile police killings and not the black-on-black crime within the black community? No. Again, I hit on that in my last video, and I'll talk about that again in more detail sometime. But all in all, because of what I went through in my life, I can take the good out of anything. I can look at all the people who were in the peaceful protest here in Jeff City, a lot of white people that were participating. I didn't go. I'll tell you why on another video, but I'm going to tell you what. All my friends who reached out, I feel you, and I thank you. I saw you out there, and you know what? I know that you're not Marxist, and you're not, the Antifa. You're not socialist or, whatever you're accused of. People tend to generalize and just get ridiculous. I think that you were just people who want to stand up against bigotry. I think you're people who understand that maybe somebody who has life experiences like I do, watching that George Floyd thing might hit me in a different way. Not saying that it would hit me in a more negative way than a white person or someone of another race, but just understanding that everybody has a different life experience, and your life experience determines how you view things. It colors the lens that you see your reality. Okay? So I can take some good out of everything. I can understand the general idea of what's happening. But I can also say that BLM is not, they don't have a patent on racial equality and fighting bigotry. Some people tend to think that this is the only voice, and it's not. I'm a voice. You're a voice. There's still several organizations that are a voice that are not represented by BLM. So maybe we can all take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, and realize that the majority of us, no matter what our political backgrounds are or our ethnicity, the majority of us, great majority, want the same thing and believe the same thing, but we don't trust each other enough to understand the message that we're trying to send. Whoops, I went so long, I actually ran out of space for the maximum size of the video. So I had to finish this up the next day. This is day 2. All right, let's wrap everything up and let me give you some good, solid advice on how you can make a difference and make the world a better place. First of all, rather than bickering and arguing and behaving like children, okay, I want you to take this advice. Here's the steps of what you can do to replace the bickering and the arguing, which, by the way, that gets you nowhere. You only end up digging your heels in on your point of view, getting angry, and then the other person ends up thinking worse of you. All right, so here's what you're going to do. Number 1, establish common ground. So if you find out where you have common ground with somebody else that has a different background, you're going to be able to go to number 2, build a sense of trust. So then you can assume that this person is not out to get you and that maybe you both want to find agreement somehow. Okay, so number 3 is understand that your perspectives are a result of your differing life experiences. Okay, remember what I said about the fact that you see life through the lens, it's colored through the lens that is made up of your life experiences. Okay, once we do that, giving people the benefit of the doubt before immediately having a snap judgment reaction and sparking off an argument, once we give somebody a chance, then we can communicate like adults. So, hopefully you learned something from that. If you have comments, please post them on the video. And I've got some new stuff coming up that is very good. I have a lot of people asking me for my opinion on the topic of white privilege. And I have some good things to say about this topic, some interesting perspective that you probably won't see coming. You wanna check out that video. I've got a very interesting angle on white privilege. And there's many other subjects that are coming up. I can't wait to share. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you have not. We'll see you next time.